This is Matt Pressman, editor of Florida Tennis Magazine. I'm here in Davie, Florida at the Saviano High Performance Tennis Academy with Nick Saviano, a legend in coaching. We have a chance today to learn more about him and more about the Academy.
Well, that's
so
great.
Welcome,
It's great to have you here. Love to have Florida Tennis anytime.
Yeah, and Nick's been on the cover of Florida Tennis previously and has quite a legacy going back a long way. But first, I want to talk a little bit about your junior career.
Oh, my goodness.
And how you kids are going way back as a player. Yeah, how did you wind up becoming a pro player, and what was that journey like?
Well, I was always a pretty good athlete. I started actually at 12 years old, then started playing full-time at 14, got my first ranking in Northern California, kept working from there, started to get nationally ranked in the 16s, became one of the one or two top collegiate prospects. You know, when I was in Northern California, I wound up finishing 3 in the country, but the number 1 player, it was Billy Martin. He's a UCLA coach. He was a year younger, so I wound up going to Stanford on full scholarship. I was there 2 years, All-American, freshman, sophomore year, won the NCAAs.
Not a bad school, by the way.
Not a bad school,
right.
And an amazing team.
Yeah.
And then I played some pro tournaments during the year, and I wound up getting my ranking up to 130 in the world, and I turned pro after my sophomore year.
Now, who was in the team with you at Stanford?
Amazing team. Gene Mayer, who got to 4 in the world.
Wow.
Sandy Mayer, who got to 8 in the world. Patrick Dupre, who was 15 in the world. John Whitlinger, who won the NCAAs that year, was top 50. I was top 50. And then we had one other player that was top 100. So it was a pretty impressive team.
And how did it feel going from, junior tennis to college tennis, then to eventually being a pro?
Well, it was a different time back then. Everybody went to college, at least for a year. Jimmy Connors, John McEnroe.
Who went to Stanford, of course, right?
Yeah. Well, Connors went to UCLA. McEnroe went to Stanford.
Right.
But I was already gone. He's like 4 years younger than I am.
Okay.
And so pretty much every top male American player would go to college. And at that time, we had 48 men in the top 100 in the world.
Right.
So the United States was dominant. And then you'd progress on to the pro tour. But things have changed a lot. And the game has become more international and more diverse and with far more competition, which is evident by the diversity of all the different countries represented in the top 100, not only in the men's, but also in the women's.
Yeah. And so so many players down here in Florida, they're great juniors and they want to make it in college. So not only did you go to college, you went to Stanford, which at the time was one of the, if not the top team.
It was a great team.
And then you wound up going pro. So that is this sort of dream, that pipeline, that path, that journey. Tell us a little about your experience on that path and how you're able to translate that experience now as a coach to some of the young players you work with.
Well, it's not just that path. Then you spend 8-9 years on the pro tour.
Right.
And you go through the process of dreaming one day of playing Grand Slams, to actually being there, to doing extraordinarily well some of the time, to having real lows. So there's ups and downs. I remember really playing well, winning an ATP tournament, and had been in the quarters the week before and thinking I'm on top of the world, and then I'm losing first round the next week. The competition is so tough. It was lonely out there because, you didn't have cell phones. You didn't have
social media.
Media. You didn't have Zoom sessions. When you were gone, you were gone. And so when I was out there, I felt very lonely. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy the travel. So I was pretty good. I remained in the top 100 and then reached the top 50 on today's ranking. If they used the system today, my top ranking would have been in the 20s, low 20s. However, my actual ranking then represented the player I was, which was 48 in the world. That was my best ranking. And that was because I was pretty inconsistent and up and down. And so you would pay a price for losing in the first round, rightfully so. And that's who I was. And I stayed there. And when I retired, I was 75 in the world the day I retired, which was in February 10th, 1984, when my daughter was born.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So, and that's what
So
sort of
when
brought
you
on-
when
yeah.
you take the whole ebb and flow, and when I'm passing on experience to young people, although I don't like to talk much about my playing background, but it takes that in its totality. And
Yeah.
now at this point, I've been doing this for 42 years as a coach. So you have 8, 9 years on the pro tour. I was actually basically a world class player a year before that. So you're looking at 50 some years of doing this at a world class level. Hopefully you learn things. One of the things you do learn,
Yeah.
I'm telling you, one of the things hopefully you learn is real, genuine humility,
Yeah.
because you go there as a player and you see real greatness.
Yeah.
And I was a very good pro. I was not great, but I was on the court with greatness. I was on the court with McEnroe and Connors in practice on a daily basis, and Vitas Gerulaitis and Gottfried, Solomon, Dibbs, to mention a lot of Florida people there.
Right.
And so you learn. And then even over the years, I've been on the court with Nadal in practice and Federer and everyone in between that you could think of for those years, females and males. And you learn so much from the environment, from watching not only the development of players where they're top world-class players, but even watching the parents and how they raise children. And who are the kids that were like developed close to their full potential? Who are the ones that burned out?
Right.
What were the real
Ingredients.
the ingredients, a catalyst to young people reaching close to their full potential? And that's what's always intrigued me. That's what I feel is so important. And I've said this many times. We've talked a lot, and working with young people is a sacred trust.
Yeah.
And it's a sacred trust to the child, and it's a sacred trust to the parents. I really don't care if it seems trite or a cliche or corny or whatever. That is a fundamental truth, in my opinion, you need to have as a coach, because that is your guiding light. That is number one. That's what leads you in the direction. I need to do what's in the best interest of the child. And conversely, what it means is I have a responsibility to constantly improve and grow. I cannot accept, oh, well, I'm really experienced. I know. No,
Right.
You wake up every morning and you say, how do I get better? And that's what I try to do. Again, I don't care if people think, well, okay, it's just no. I wake up in the morning and I never accept the level of my knowledge. So it's how do I get better? How do I study? How do I learn? How do I communicate better? How do I become more skilled at taking information and gleaning it from a player so I can help them?
Yeah.
This is what I feel is one of the most motivating things for me above everything else, so that hopefully in some small way, all of the players I've been involved with, and we mentioned this earlier,
Yeah.
we were talking beforehand, I will not accept credit for the results of any players I've ever worked with.
Yeah.
I just won't. Not at this point. Maybe when I was younger, you think in those terms, but I won't do that because so many people are involved, and that's not right for anybody to take credit.
Sure.
What I hope for is that those people look back at their tennis career and say, Nick helped me in my tennis, and he also contributed some really good things towards fundamental principles of life success.
Yeah, and I mean, so many players, right? So I mean, we do want to mention a few. I mean, let's just think through. Let's back up a little bit.
Okay, let's back up.
You get off.
Back up a long ways.
Back up a long ways. So you get off the tour, you become a daddy, and
Yep.
eventually you now have to move into some second phase in your life,
Yep.
and that wound up being coaching.
Yep.
So how did that transition go?
It wasn't that smooth.
Okay.
I had business interests in California with my brothers. Saviano company was a grading and paving company, and also built tennis courts, and that was going well. And I came to California right after we we moved from Florida to California to get started in that business. But, I got a call from the USTA asking me if, in fact, I would help them out at one of these training camps they had. There was no player development at that time. That was in 1984.
Okay.
So I'm fresh off the tour. I'm still 75 in the world. I'm in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
So, I could still play okay. So, okay, I'll go hit with some juniors and no big deal. So I go to my first camp and I'm hitting with the young guy. This is a true story. And I mentioned this, other people over the years, sometimes I think they think I'm embellishing it. But one of the reasons why I retired, I'm talking to my wife a few weeks earlier, and I'm in Germany, and I'm playing doubles and at an ATP event. And I said, for goodness sakes, I'm practicing with this kid who's 15 years old, and he's pushing me all over the place.
He's pretty good.
I said, what's going on here? It's time for me to retire. I'm 28 years old. I said, this is ridiculous. So we want to play in this kid in doubles, and he's got his other friend. They're like, he's 15, the other kid's 16. We are busting our butt to stay with these kids.
Right.
We've barely beat them like 7-5 in the third. And then I said, gosh, enough. I called my wife. I said, look, it's time for me to really
hang
end this thing.
Yeah.
So I wound up doing that. And so, all things good. And then I go to this camp. And so I'm thinking, well, I'm still hitting the ball pretty well. No problem. I'm going out. I'm going to hit with some 14-year-old. Let me just hit easy. This kid's running my butt off.
Right.
And I'm trying to act like I'm not trying. And he's really making me work.
He's
and
pushing
saying,
you. Yeah.
I said, this is ridiculous. It's a good thing I retired. So we go to the next guy. I said, oh, my God, this boy's pudgy kid pounding the ball.
Okay.
And he's pounding the ball. And I'm trying to get out there and act like, okay, I'm a world-class professional. I don't really have to bust my butt, but I am just to make them feel good. So then I go to another one, and he was really good. So I sit down.
Who are these guys?
And I was like exhausted.
Okay.
And they said, have you hit with Andre yet?
Okay.
And I said, no. And so, yes, that was Andre Agassi.
Wow. Okay.
The first guy I hit with was Michael Chang, the little guy.
Right.
The second guy was Jim Courier. The third guy was a guy named David Wheaton.
Yeah.
And then in the afternoon, it was Andre Agassi.
So it was like a who's who of the next generation.
And so I said, wow, this was pretty special. So I said, okay, I think these guys are really good. That was my first real exposure to the coaching, aside from a few lessons in California. So I got a lot of positive feedback. And then I also got a lot of positive feedback in California. Once I started teaching, I started working with people at a high level and had quite a bit of success over the next 3 years, and working with people like Jared Palmer, who went on to be a successguy world-class
top
professional, top doubles player in the world, NCAA champion, Jonathan Stark at a young age, a guy named Fritz Bissell who won national championships, another gal, Terry Phelps, Justin Gimelstob at 8 years old. He went on to play Davis Cup and be, a top 100 player, and et cetera, et cetera. Right. So I started to have success very early, but I also started to help the USTA with other camps, and there were more people there. Pete Sampras would be at the next one. And even Martin Blackman was there. I have a picture with Martin when he was very, very young. And, he was running player development for a while. Wonderful individual.
Yeah.
And so I just started working more and more. I started to help write the player development program under a guy named Bumpy Frazier in 86, 87.
Okay.
Although they changed a lot of my ideas, I wrote a lot of the structure, and that was great. And then in 88, they hired me as the first national coach, along with 3 other individuals. And then I was with player development for the next 12, 13 years.
Yeah, and that crop of American young men players were incredible. I mean, have worked with them at that time and then brought them into the game, at the pro game at least,
Well, but let's be clear. Let's be clear. The thing is, I was with them at that camp, and I got to know them.
Right,
I was at the Sunshine Cup with Michael Chang. We were working on clay. Right. I spent quite a bit of time with David Wheaton, even as a junior, and a little bit as a professional. I worked quite a bit with Jimmy, traveling with Jimmy Courier, traveling
Right.
with him through Europe and other events. And as I mentioned earlier, I remember warming up Jimmy on Christmas Day for the Orange Bowl finals, and then racing back to the house, a finals in which he won. But they were product of Nick Bollettieri. But I
Right.
spent a lot of time. I was very friendly with Nick. He was a wonderful friend to me, and we had a great relationship over the years.
Sure.
But you spend time with these people, and I travel with them, with Jonathan Stark, Jared, Vince Spadia, another
Sure.
kid worked a lot with,
Florida,
even as a
yep.
pro. So you learn and you grow as a coach. It's not about taking credit for anything that they accomplish, but a whole host of other male players, because I was relegated to the male side. Then after becoming a national coach, I became director of player development for men's tennis. So I was overseeing that. And at that point, I could see the writing on the wall that after this group that we had there, we were
What a
going to
group.
have
Yeah.
a real problem in men's tennis, not so much in women's tennis. So I wrote about that. And then after that, I became the director of high performance coaching education, where I learned an enormous amount.
At the USTA.
Yeah,
Yeah.
enormous amount for the United States, at the USTA, about learning, educating. I was overseeing the sports science department, a lot of very bright people. So I learned a lot. It was a humbling experience where I learned to truly respect and honor the other coaches
Sure.
that were there. So it was a great learning experience for me
Yeah.
personally.
So when you think about, we talked about the ingredients, right? What are the ingredients that can bring a player to be a college player, ultimately to be a pro, working now as a coach? What do you think is the recipe, and what did you try to translate from your experience in tennis to these young players? If it was a short time with them, or like Courier, you're out on tour with them, what were you trying to impress upon them to get them to improve?
Well, with somebody like Courier, I was with him through the junior events, and I was friendly with him, while he was on the tour. Occasionally, he'd ask me to spend a few days with him. I was blessed later on. He invited me and my wife to his induction in the Hall of Fame. But Jimmy was well coached. He had actually asked me to work with him full time, and I said no. And the reason I said no was I was going to stay in my job with the USTA. I didn't want to travel that much. I had multiple children at that time. I have
Sure.
3 total. At that time, I had 2, and I didn't want to travel. So we were always very close, and I consider him a dear friend even now. But as far as the ingredients, many of the great ingredients, the subtleties, are established at a very young age.
Okay.
And they're established by the parents. When you different things about work ethic, about striving to be the best they can be, about discipline, toughness, dreaming big, all of these things. There's so many characteristics that are hopefully instilled by the parents. And that's why I say it's ludicrous for any coach to take credit for
Sure.
developing a player, because there are so many other key people involved, whether it be a physical trainer, multiple other coaches, that first coach that was feeding him balls that just made it fun, you name it.
Yeah.
So those characteristics are instilled, and then you have the environment in which they're raised and where somebody's teaching them good fundamental principles of the game.
Right.
Ones that allow for their creative brilliance to come through even at a young age, while harnessing those rock solid foundational elements in technique and strategy and tactics and in competing that are going to give them a limitless future.
Okay.
Now, when you can do that, you don't know all the ones that are going to be great, but you're giving people that opportunity to be great if they so choose and are willing to put the time and effort and have the courage to go for their dreams.
And what I love what you said is really that the foundation is mindset, right? So even before you start talking about technique and strategy and what you're going to do at a tournament, you really have to have the mindset that's going to take you there, right? That would be the secret recipe per se.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yes, and look, at a lot of that mindset can start to be instilled at 2 years old.
Sure.
when I say that, people say that's crazy. No, when you've got a 2-year-old and you look at them and you start reading to them and you're joyous about them learning, and when they do something, and they're maybe trying to walk and they roll over, and rather than quickly pick them up, say you can do that, go on, and you start encouraging them to persevere, to all
Yeah.
of these traits. Where people are, they seem mundane, they seem totally innocuous, where they're not harmful, but in fact they're actually powerful and beneficial. So there's a whole timeline of developing these characteristics with young individuals, and then that translates to sport and playing sport, a love for learning, a joy for competing, understanding that you're going to win and you're going to lose,
Right.
but you can always put in a great effort. All of these factors are profoundly important. You combine that with a good program, a coach that has joy and passion for what he's doing,
Yeah.
and you're going to really start to get a great foundation for that child.
Another interesting thing is just the journey of life, right? So you go from junior player, college player, pro player, to a coach, to the USTA, to really helping work with these young players, the next generation of American talent, male players,
And foreigners.
right? Both.
Greg Rosetsky.
Okay.
Greg Rosetsky got to 4 of the world. He was Canadian, then he switched to England. But go ahead.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And then later on, you start to develop a lot of young female players, right?
Yeah.
So there's some big names in there as well. So let's talk a little bit about that transition from coaching men to coaching female players and to really developing them into champions.
Well, that
The difference, and
no, that
in journey.
happened kind of almost serendipitously. The thing is that when I was with the USTA, I was supposed to only work with the male players.
Yeah.
Well, it worked out where Stefano Capriati asked me when I was traveling in Europe to work with his daughter. And so
Jennifer Capriati.
Jennifer Capriati. And I said, boy, that's up to the USTA. So he asked the president of the USTA. They said yes. So I started working with her, and that went really well.
Okay.
She won Belgium. She won the French juniors. And at that time, she went ahead and she wound up winning the French juniors easily at 13 years old. They then asked me if I would work with her full time. I said no. However, I was in Princeton, and they were in Florida, Princeton, New Jersey, and they were in Florida. And it was arranged for me to move to Saddlebrook to coincide with her move to Saddlebrook.
Okay.
So that I could work with her and still do the boys/men.
Right.
Which is what I did. And then it was just a few months, and then she went on and got a coach, and they always knew that they could come to me if I could be of any help.
Sure.
And Jennifer, candidly, was at our house on a daily basis. We live right next to each other. My
At
wife,
Saddlebrook.
my wife and Denise Capriati, her mother, became very good friends. So, I was constantly talking to him about Jennifer and maybe giving some advice or whatever. And then after that, other people started asking female players.
Sure.
Monica Seles asked me if I could spend time with her on the serve. And politically, it was a little bit sensitive, but I was always working with some people asking me as I went along. And when I was director of coaching for men's tennis, I stayed away from that. But once I became director of coaching for the high performance coaching education,
it kind of opened you up a
it
little bit.
opened me up,
Yeah.
and that's when I think Monica got in touch with me and asked me if I would work with her on the serve in particular, because she was having trouble beating Venus and Serena. And so after a lot of maneuvering to make it happen politically, which was not that easy in the USTA, not on my part, on their part, we finally got together. And she's delightful, brilliant, incredibly humble. And we only worked a few times because she wound up getting hurt, and then shortly thereafter it ended her career.
Yeah.
But I learned an enormous amount. We had some great exchanges, over a 6-month period where I worked with her, and then she went on the road and text back and forth. And then as she came back, I think we were on the court again. And then there was a problem with some injuries. But I learned a lot from her. And then after I left,
So you're at Saddlebrook now. You're
I'm
working
at
with
Saddlebrook,
Celis,
and
with
then I wound up,
Capriati.
yeah, and there were many others that I spent time with, but some more, some less. I don't even want to include names. But then when I started my own academy, I was working with guys like Vince Spadia, Jan Michael Gamble, Justin Gilstab, guys.
Sure.
And they were older.
Yeah.
And then I had some young gals. I got a young gal named Sloane Stevens at 11. Yeah. And then a gal
She did
named,
okay.
She did okay.
She did okay.
And then Monica Puig at 10
Sure.
and a half, 11.
Yeah.
And then she wound up winning a gold medal.
Olympics, yeah.
And then there was Jeannie Bouchard came slightly after Laura Robson came. Laura Robson came, and Laura wound up winning. She came at 12, and then she trained with us for 10 weeks, won the Eddie Herr semifinals, the Orange Bowl in the 12s. Then I was in constant contact with her. She won Junior Wimbledon at 14. I wasn't working with her at that time.
Okay.
And she was a great talent. She was up to 35 in the world before she got hurt.
Okay.
Then at that same time, Laura's mom recommended to Jeannie Bouchard that she should come down. So when Jeannie was 12, she came out. So I had Laura, Jeannie, Sloane, Monica, and then Lauren Davis would come out as well. Another one, Mallory Burdett, who was NCAA doubles champion, All-American, top 60 in the world. All these girls. Jeannie was obviously top 5. Monica, gold medalist, top 30. And then also Lauren Davis was, I don't know what hers, but Lauren didn't come that much. She was there for a while, but Laura Robson got to like 35, 33 in the world. And she was actually going to work with me on the tour along with Jeannie and Sloane, but she wound up getting hurt. So that was the group. And then
what a group!
Then
not a bad group.
I kept. There were many others that I worked with that were world class players, but not that much. Then a young.
And then this time was the Saviano Academy here in Davie, or was
it was in Sunrise.
Right, still here in Florida.
Yeah, and then after them, I don't know who came next. It was I know Amanda Anisimova. Came when they started coming out with their dad at maybe 11, maybe 10 and a half, 11.
Okay.
And I worked with her with the dad from all the way up to 20, 21 years old.
And her development's been incredible.
Yeah, but there are many other people that have worked with her. I've spent time with her. As I said earlier, I take no credit for results. I'm still very close with Amanda. It's something where her and her team knows they can always pick up the phone, call me. They can ask for any of my thoughts or whatever, or jump on the court.
Sure.
So it's a very close relationship, and it's really important to me, as I'm still close with Sloane and also Jeannie Bouchard, and also Mallory Burdett is now a doctor of psychology, she's a PhD. So time goes by, and then after that, a few years later, a father, Corey Goff, contacted me about coming out to take a look at his daughter, and I'd heard good things about her. And so when she came out, I knew, okay, this one's really special.
Yeah.
And so, and Corey, wonderful man, wonderful family, Candy, and I even met the grandmother and so on. And so they'd come out the first year once
How did Coco
once
look
a month.
at that time? Yeah.
She was really good, very disciplined, very respectful, just a wonderful young gal.
Yeah.
And I would lavish them with praise about her as her character and everything, and work ethic. And then they'd come out like once a month. Not that much, but once a month, and they'd film things, and I'd give Corey my thoughts. And then the next year they would come out more than that.
Okay.
And exactly how much, but it was more than once a month. It was more, a couple times a month, maybe 3 times a month, more. And then in 2019, he came to my office and said, I'd like to come out more frequently, help oversee what she was doing.
Okay.
And so for 6-8 months, it did that right up to her doing well at Wimbledon.
Yeah.
You know, and Corey was always the primary coach. I was assisting. They had that young French coach, does a great job, is still with her now. I've forgotten his name, but she had her whole team coming out. And I was just giving them my input on what I thought and suggestions and so on, you know, working on various things on her game. And I really enjoyed that. And so I have a lot of respect for them and their family, although I may, you know, that was after that period of time. She came back after Wimbledon.
Sure.
And then after that, you know, the U.S. Open, I'm not sure if we're going to, I might be getting the dates mixed up.
Okay.
She, no, the year before, she lost to Amanda Anisimova in the finals of U.S. Open
So
Juniors.
2 players you worked with, yeah.
Yeah, but you know, I kept a low profile about
sure,
that.
Sure.
So anyway, that was that, and you know, I continue to work with players. I spent time with Svitolina.
Okay.
They asked me to work with her. I said they wanted me to go back up to the U.S. Open to work with her after coming back down.
Oh,
I
yes.
said,
Okay.
I don't want to do that, and they begged me to go up there, so I did. I went up. Took a look at her, say, okay, this is what I think she needs. They wanted her to win major titles. They said she can't get past the quarterfinals. So I said, okay, I'll work with her 2 weeks training down at Saviano's. I'll go 2 weeks on the road.
Okay.
Now, I didn't know her.
Yeah.
So I don't like traveling with people I don't know.
Right.
So the training went great. She's bright, works hard, talented as heck. I explained to her what I thought, the reasons why. I tweaked her forehand a little bit on her serve and said strategically and tactically you have to change your mindset. You start, as the tournament gets going, you start getting passive and trying to just be solid and consistent.
Right.
I said, you can't do that in major events because the great ones are going to go out after it. And you have to go out after it. Well, I worked with her 2 weeks, went to China with her for 2 weeks. First week, she lost to a young gal named Sabalenka. Sabalenka. And so I said, this gal's going to be a great player.
Yeah.
Lost in 3 sets, and then she lost early in the next week, but I couldn't stay. And so I was, you know, I wanted to go. I don't like it out on the tour. And if I don't know somebody well where I have a real relationship, but I really felt the development was really good. So I went home, and 10 days later, she won the WTA year-ending championships.
Yeah.
And that was the only big title she's ever won. I am not taking credit for that at all. She was with a very qualified coach, but what I like to think is that the few of the things we really worked on when she was back at the academy resonated with her because she was a little more aggressive.
And it stuck.
On her forehand. Maybe it did.
Yeah.
But again, I just hope that they felt it was worth their time coming and spending time. That's it.
What an incredible story here, and the chronology of it, and how it all came together from being a young guy.
There are others, but at my age, I'm starting to forget a few.
Well, you know, so now we come to this stage of the game, and I hear you have a book in the works. Can you tell us a little bit about it? I know you don't have it all, you know, kind of nailed down yet.
I'm formulating it. As you know, I wrote a book, Maximum Tennis.
Sure.
I wrote that, and when I was still with the USTA in 2000 to 2002, it came out in 2002.
And you've learned a little bit since then. Yeah.
You know, I have, but what I'm really proud of with that book, much of what's in there is still relevant because it dealt with fundamental principles of tennis. And so that's one of my core philosophies, is that there is fundamental principles of life success. There are fundamental principles of coaching, teaching, mentoring, parenting that I think are essential. And there are fundamental principles of technique, strategy, tactics, training, and so on. So I focus on those fundamentals. And then from there, you have high performance principles, which hopefully if you've instilled good, solid fundamental principles, the high performance principles are what allow creative genius to come out.
Okay.
That are, you know, explosive racket head speed, the creativity of, the drop shots, although you can teach that at a young
Yeah.
age. The nuances of really highlighting your physical and mental skills that are personalized to you. That's what you really want to do at the highest level. A lot of people make mistakes about that as they try to teach too much of that before they have a rock solid foundation.
So you got to build that foundation first.
So that's what I'm writing the book about. Fundamental principles of what I consider life success that should be intertwined into every aspect of the game, intertwined or tied in. I don't know if intertwined is a correct word,
right?
But where they're
intertwined, maybe
intertwined,
yeah.
with the with everything that you teach, And there's ways to do that, and you want to emphasize it, and it gives the concepts that you're teaching more gravitas or more weight or more significance, and especially when you can explain it to a child and parents. They begin to grasp why it's so important. And so my whole philosophy and teaching are centered around that, and that's what I'm writing the book on.
I can't wait to read it. And I mean, I don't want to talk too much about today's game, but it's so funny that you're talking about this right now because I see a lot of young players now looking up to two guys, right? Sinner and Alcaraz. On the one hand, you got Sinner, who's got that kind of almost robotic, kind of machine-like game. The fundamentals are there, but is the creativity there in the same way that Alcaraz has? And so although Alcaraz has the ability to play like that, he has a bit more of a dynamic, fluid, variety-based sort of recipe or formula in his game. Do you think that the book will ultimately kind of reveal some of the secrets of kind of what needs to happen next? I heard Sinner talking about it in the interview, why he lost to Alcaraz. Maybe he needs a few more kind of bits of variety in his own game, And do you think some players really need to think about that in today's game?
Well, first of all, if I had a player and they were playing like Sinner, I'd be pretty happy.
Yeah, right. He's not a bad player.
Not a bad player at all. Great ball striker.
Sure.
He's taller. He's longer. His game is going to be more linear, straightforward.
Right.
Somebody who is shorter and, a powerful, more of a stocky guy is going to be more rotational and rotational
like
force.
Yeah.
And so they're going to rely more on heavy spins, on opening the court up.
Their physicality.
And they're not just their physicality in terms of their wanting to make it an athletic game, running more. The smaller person is going to be faster as a general rule.
Okay.
The taller person, as a general rule, is going to go with more straightforward power. Now, having said that, a lot of people were quick to say, oh, these guys are already playing at a higher level than Djokovic. Hold on a second.
Okay.
Yeah, the game has evolved where there's more power and whatever. But Djokovic is 38 years old.
Yeah.
And these guys had to work their butts off. And Djokovic matched up with Alcaraz a year or so ago with at the Olympics.
Yeah.
And Djokovic was a master of ball control.
Yeah.
That is what, in my view, Sinner needs more of.
Okay.
He doesn't adjust the height of the ball enough. He doesn't open the court up enough. He is too bang. And one of the things...
Maybe too predictable?
Well, a little predictable, but the issue becomes he sometimes hits himself into trouble.
Okay.
When Djokovic was not in great position, and this was not apparent to people on TV, he had this little nuance of lifting the ball a little higher, buying time for that extra step to recover, making the other guy wait. Just brilliant.
Yeah.
And Nadal recently said there is nobody with the ball control that Djokovic had. He said
I heard that.
Nobody can do that.
Yeah.
And so that is one of the things that if I were working with Sinner, one, I would make sure you continue with the increase in net play, transitioning. Number two, I would put a little more air on the ball when he's not in position to hurt somebody.
Okay.
It may look spectacular to people out there in the audience when he's whipping the ball hard, but when it bounces right in the strike zone of an opponent and they're right there, you're not helping yourself too much.
Yeah.
So I think he will make those adjustments. He has that kind of character. Sinner, to me, is a little bit frail physically.
Okay.
And my hope is that he holds up. I don't see, he's not as robust as Djokovic.
Okay.
And how long a career he'll have, I don't know.
Yeah.
I hope a long career. I think he's fabulous.
Yeah.
But the guy who I'm really impressed with is Alcaraz.
Me too.
Where I think he's going to be around for years and years. And I felt, this is me, I felt that earlier on, a few years ago, his team was making a mistake. When I watched the, I guess it was Netflix show about Alcaraz.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And they were talking about the goal in order to become the greatest of all time. And I want to make a statement about the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
Is, to be the greatest of all time, you got to do this. You should win a couple Grand Slams. I just think that's a flawed approach.
Okay.
If you ask, other than maybe Tiger Woods, where it didn't end well for him, but most all-time greats didn't start out thinking they were going to be all-time greats.
Right. Right.
You ask them.
It's a bumpy road. It's a bumpy road. Yeah.
Djokovic will tell you, no, I wanted to win Wimbledon was a dream.
Right.
I wanted to play pro tennis, win Wimbledon. That was a dream, a vision, and so on. But having a specific goal to become the greatest of all time, I think, is detrimental to the development. It puts enormous
Too much
stress.
pressure on yourself?
Too much pressure.
Yeah.
Well, too much pressure, and you can't control it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah.
you start getting your athlete to start thinking about things they can't control.
Sure.
The goal.
Control, you can control.
The ultimate goal is
Yeah.
to be the best you can be. That's the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
To
Like
play
John
with
Wooden
joy.
used to say, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
To play
Yeah.
with joy, passion, be everything you can be, and nobody can stop you.
Sure.
Nobody can keep you from that ultimate goal. And the people that do this are relentlessly trying to improve. Why? Because the biggest goal they have is, how good can I be? Let me keep improving. And nobody can stop them. They're the ones that play with the relentless joy and passion. You get that with a Tom Brady. You get that even with a Michael Jordan. You get that with so many of the all-time greats.
Sure.
They will tell you that.
Sure. All right. Well, so you've been so generous with your time. I really appreciate it. The Florida tennis fans and viewers, I'm sure, are having a great time listening to all of the philosophies, the secret recipe, the ingredients that it takes to make it. You've done it through so many different phases of your career. So with our audience, what would you tell them, any parting words in terms of how they can get better every day, how they can become the best that they can be?
Well, it would depend if you were competitors or not, but the number one thing is the game is to be enjoyed and to love being out there. Try to become an athlete where you say, this tennis is helping me to become in better shape, more athletic. If you're young and you're aspiring, then joy and passion is number one. Then you go from that, learn the fundamentals. Learn that also life is not easy. It's not easy on the court if you want to be special. So embrace the challenges that you're going to have and focus in on all the things that you can control. If you do that, no one can stop you. Get a really good coach. Get someone who cares about you. Be about relentless growth as a player. Learn, learn, learn. Watch. And when you go on the court, make your number one goal when you're competing is to be the best you can be. Your opponent can never stop you.
Yeah.
They cannot keep you from trying to be the best you can be. They may win the match. They may be too good for you, but your relentless pursuit of you getting better is a ticket to you growing and improving and evolving, and you'll grow in your enjoyment of the game, and you'll improve so much faster than you would in another way. Finally, enjoy the journey, because the journey is your reward. That goes out to the parents, and I've said that and other things. Remember, that doesn't mean you don't push hard. but enjoy the process. The more you enjoy it, the more your child will enjoy it. The more they enjoy it, the better player they're going to be, the harder they're going to work. It starts a great cycle, and it's a fundamental truth in life success.
Well, one stop along that journey should be Saviano High Performance Tennis. It's a thrill to be here with Nick, and hope you guys take away some great lessons from the conversation today. And where can people find you?
Well, we're in Davie, Florida,
Yeah.
and at savianotennis.com, on the internet, and it's easy to find anyone. We try to espouse the principles that I have here. I try to do it my way in terms of what we consider important, and I like the Academy to reflect my fundamental principles of life success, because ultimately, in this academy and all the academies, most of the kids are not going to become top world-class players. You got to make their time with you, no matter what academy you go to, as a positive contributor in their tennis and in their life. And if we do that, I'm
Done our
happy.
job. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks so much, Nick, for
My pleasure. Thanks for being
chopping
here.
it up today with us. And
a
we wish you
pleasure.
the best. And we
All
hope
the
you guys
best.
come check it out. The Saviano High Performance Tennis Academy here with Nick. He's got some great pros here. You can feel the magic and all the pros that have been here before. So make sure you go check it out.